I'd like to call the meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order, and we'll start by pledging allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We want to note for the record that this meeting is being recorded by NRSD, and we provide that recording to Templeton and Phillipston for their cable access TV networks. The next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from January, it says December 17th. This should be January 16th, 2019. The detail has the correct date, but the item does not. So when someone's ready, I would take a motion. There in front of you. If you hadn't checked beforehand. Two sets of minutes, just so you know, one from the finance meeting that was before and one from the official school committee meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes, January 16th.
I have a motion to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I do have a second. Any comments or questions, or anyone need more time? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion passed. The minutes passed unanimously. It's not on the agenda because I didn't realize they would be ready for tonight. But I will take a motion to approve the finance meeting minutes from Wednesday, January 16th, since they are available now, so that we can release them sooner rather than later.
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? I do have a second. Do I have any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Passed unanimous. We have some bills and payroll. I would take a motion to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented. I have a motion. I have
Second.
First, do I have a second? I have a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous. Thank you.
I kept saying server.
To the schools network? Or?
Yeah, maybe because of the swap.
Right, you do have a copy, I think, of the agenda in front of you, so you'll be able to read along. The next item is just our normal business manager's report, since this is an off-cycle meeting, if there's nothing new. 2018 superintendent evaluation. Mrs. Chartier has consolidated the information together, and we'll do a quick report out on consolidated information. And then as a committee, we'll need to accept the evaluation.
So, this isn't really the easiest thing to consolidate. Most user-friendly report in the world, but that's okay. We have assessed the progress toward the goals, step 1, in professional practice goal. So I took everybody's work and put it all together. I have the worksheet here that shows you how it was consolidated. And then came out with the averages. So professional practice goal from did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met or exceeded. We agreed that it was met. Student learning goal, met. District improvement goals, it was between significant progress and met, but that's because it's ongoing.
Yeah, the timing of the deliverables was 2019, and this was a 2018 evaluation. So there was, and we talked about that. It's kind of
The way it fell, because of us, it's okay.
Yeah.
And we finally approved my 2-year plan. We were farther along than I think that we thought. But we are ongoing. We've had
So with the indicators, there's 4 standards, and there's standards, and you can either choose unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, or exemplary. On all 4 standards, starting with instruction leadership is standard 1, standard 2 is management and operations, standard 3 is family and community engagement, standard 4 is professional culture. On all standards, you receive proficient. Sorry, it's hard to kind of follow along. Okay, so then there's the overall summative performance, which is either unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, or exemplary. You receive proficient. Rate the impact on student learning, and this was between moderate and high. So it was low, moderate, high, and it was between moderate and high. It says add evaluator comments, please see individual reports. Superintendent's performance goals. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. It's just a little awkward. There's the goals. And the goals are also so I probably should have gone to that part first, but yeah, okay. There you go. Do you have any questions? So overall, there's so much more
Was there a lot?
detail you can go into.
Was there a survey?
You know, I should have sent out a survey. I'd like to see this presented. I shall hand this to you.
Does anyone on the committee want to add some comments in? I know that Dr. Casavant will be able to go through and read the individual comments, but does anybody want to add some commentary towards the evaluation for 2018?
I just want to thank you for starting the budget early. I know it's something that I've been asking for a while, so I want to thank you for starting that early.
A labor of love.
And I've been on the budget subcommittee for a number of years, and as Dr. Casavant remembered, at the end of it, I always said, it just still feels like mud. This time it doesn't. It's well laid out. These 5 choices, what's in, what's out, what we can take in and out. It's certainly clear as water. There is no mud for understanding the process. And I thank you both.
Well, it's been we've trialed and errored quite a few different methods over the last couple of years, really. And so I think we've hit upon a formula that works in terms of presenting the information. We'll know going through this process.
Chris, I just want to add to, being new, I just appreciate all the information, the communication back and forth. Whenever we're asking for something, you get the details, you get them to us in time so that we can review them and be prepared, and I really appreciate that, so thank you. Very well.
Good job.
Well, I do want to add just my own comments, because I would be remiss if I didn't have something to say. I'd hate not to live up to my verbose nature. I would just like to say thank you. We had a very good year as far as movement on moving towards more of a data-driven decision-making organization. And my love of numbers and factual data, that just really makes me very excited to see that we can look at information that we have, take and consolidate it and try and find out the importance of that. So it really looks well as to what our future will be, being able to use that. To tie it back into the budget discussion, we'll be able to see how that links back and forth, which is always one piece that we've kind of struggled with to know exactly, okay, so where's the data that shows we needed to put money there? And I see that we're well on our way to do that. I also have witnessed, we've made some very good additions to the staff that have been mostly your hiring decisions that have added a new dimension to the school and focus, which it's tough when you have limited resources, and having the right focus with them. It seems that we are focused properly. And I do want to just, one other comment is about the communication. I think you've done an outstanding job managing communications with the school community and the external community, especially some of the things that have come up that have been sensitive in nature. And I think it puts our district in a very good light when we move to be more transparent than ever and allow the community to know that they can trust what we're saying, and we're on top of things. And I really appreciate that. And I think the community as a whole, from what I've heard, have also appreciated that effort. And opening, kind of opening the door to say, come on in and talk, ask the questions, and I'll tell you whatever I can. And I think that they understand that we are doing just that, so I want to thank you.
I think that, and thank you for
Yeah,
all
what she
this.
says.
So, communication is always easy when it's good news. Those are great days. When it's not good news, you're almost, it's almost more important to communicate that out there. Especially in a small community, you know that information is out. There's some information out there. So, from the very beginning, and I'd like to take all the credit for it, but I can't. Certainly, way back when it all first started, and news trucks were in the parking lot for the first time, and the mentor program that I went through as a new superintendent truly set us us on the right path, and we just kind of used that method all the way through. But people certainly it's hard to hear bad information, right, or hard information. It's hard to hear that because people love this district, people love their school, people love their towns, and they take it personally, which is great, quite frankly, because this is personal work that we do. We do not make widgets. We educate children, and so with all of us are parents, and maybe at some day, and we know that being parents and teachers, there's good and bad always, and you just have to share equally in the same frame. So we've tried hard to do that. It hasn't always been as pretty as we'd like it, but we'll keep at it. But thank you.
Sure. So normally, what goes along with the evaluation is if the committee, if there was someone who wanted to recommend an increase, put that on the floor, we could do that at this time.
So where it says motion to evaluate the superintendent as.
Oh, sorry,
We have to do that
yes, we
first?
should, my apologies. So I would take a motion to evaluate formally evaluate the superintendent as proficient.
So moved.
So moved, do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So motion passes unanimously.
Do you have an agenda? I do not have it. I have it. Well, they're down there.
There's a couple not reading.
Oh, that's okay, thank you. Thank you, we're good. Thank you. I can't speak that, no one.
Sorry.
So did that motion pass?
Yes, the motion passed unanimously. And again, as far as, I would entertain a motion if someone was so inclined for an increase, excuse me, didn't we have a superintendent subcommittee with the contract? That's something separate. This is for this evaluation period.
Oh,
Yeah, that'll come when we do the contract.
oh, I thought it would come now, but.
Yeah. This would get us to the base where we start the next contract at.
Okay.
So,
I'd like to make a motion, I'm just not sure what's realistic. So I don't want to, throw a number out there. I'd love to say 20%. But I want to be realistic too, so I'm not exactly, is 3% realistic? Or do I say, I make a motion to add superintendent 3% raise and then we discussion? I don't know what 3% looks like.
yeah, that's the, so just as some background, one of the things as we looked at when we talked about the contract is area pay scales and what the surrounding towns are paying and where we're at. So just as a point of reference, our superintendent makes the least out of anyone in the surrounding towns. And it's, I hate to say significant, but it's a significant number. So,
Do we know what the dollar amount is off the top of me? I know roughly it's around
yeah.
I would literally have to.
Should be there. I know, I should have prepared, and I apologize.
Honestly, because I should
So, that's the number right now.
having thought that an even number would be wonderful, I would recommend to increase the superintendent's salary to 150,000. Is that someone a good even number?
And can you do the percentage?
Yes,
just
yes.
out there?
Currently 146.
So when does the contract expire? June?
June 30th.
So this is just to get you to.
This is to get, till the June 1st, July 1st date, yes. So we have a motion on the floor that we increase Dr. Casament's salary to 4% to $150,000. I would entertain a second.
Second.
Second, any comments, questions, discussion?
Question. I haven't looked, but what are some of the other salaries in the area?
I believe the closest when we looked was it, and I'm gonna look to Dr. Casamet only because I know that we had a discussion together and Mrs. Trifolo as well. Was it Gardner, and it's a brand new superintendent, was at 155, 156, somewhere around there?
I have to check mine. I could go back into the information. Gardner probably the closest, I think at 155.
And he came in,
Yeah,
he
fall.
started a year
Yeah, he
after
started
was
2
brand new
years. He started a year
superintendent,
ago.
so when you look at experience, so that I think is the
And
closest.
that was a new,
Brand new, yeah.
brand new.
Yeah.
Walker's at 100. I'd have to, yeah, she's new.
And this 150 is for FY '20.
It would be for effective, in the motion for January 1.
Effective for January, so
One,
current.
because, until the end of the contract date, which is June 30th. And then we would, this year, and then we'll negotiate our contract.
So we can look into bringing it to a more equitable place in the contract, but for now, 150. And I should amend the motion to say effective January 1st, 2019.
I have a friendly amendment, is everyone okay with that? All right, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Hearing none. The increase will be effective January 1st. And then the next step will be the new contract that will come forward here. And that's the subcommittee that works on that we present. Thank you. Thank you for the hard work. Thank you to the team, because we all know that we all look good because of the people around us. So we appreciate everyone's efforts.
Susan.
Yeah, Susan's like, that'd be me. Okay, the next item I'm going to ask that we just pass over until the end, which is our budget discussion. It is ongoing business, which is why it fell there, but I'd like to go through the rest of the items, just to make sure we go through them, and then we'll focus on the budget last and hop into executive session at the very end, which we will not come out of into public session. So, moving on, do we have any public input tonight? Seeing none, do we have any NDEA input? It's not on the agenda, but I do see we have our student reps here. Did they want to make a report? Okay, so James Hool, one of our student reps, will make a report. Unfortunately, they couldn't be at the last meeting, so we'll add this in as a surprise item.
So midterms started, well, midterms ended. We went through all of our midterms in the start of term 3. So we were in full force for term 3. Christmas break went through, everything was perfect with that. The basketball teams, the boys only need one more win to become Midwatch Elite champs, which means a new banner in the gym. So most of the team is very excited about the banner more than the title. Winter track leagues are Friday, so that's good. The band winter concert was fantastic. The musical Annie is in full swing with rehearsals pretty much every night. The festival play is coming up. The middle school play was rescheduled for February, and
Great, thank you.
Thanks, James.
you're welcome.
Sure.
May I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Originally, in the beginning of the year, you talked about a parking lot and a fee, and
did that end up in a committee? And is the committee ongoing, or is there a status to that?
Mostly it was the student advisory council that was putting it forward. Once the idea was kind of, the process was kind of brought on by you guys, we kind of just stopped it. So there's nothing being talked about right now.
Thank you.
School committee,
Policy change, it certainly would be a policy.
Yeah, just wondered the
Yeah,
status.
I think that it would be, go through, I would think, defer, but I mean, certainly go through policy first, probably.
I think, and I know there was some questions about, you know, what,
Area.
where the funds would need to go, and some other things around if we implemented it, what the process
What
be.
would the money be able to go to if it was in the revolving fund? It would literally, it would be parking, it'd be in the revolving, you could probably
Right.
recreate something. It could go to a lot of different things, a lot of different schools do a lot of different districts do a lot of different things. So sometimes it goes back into their student activity account for whatever reason. If there's any type of upgrade to the parking lot, generally, you're not gonna generate enough funds through parking fees to do anything substantial, quite frankly, to a parking lot, you know, that. So it's a way for, you know, it's handled a lot of different ways, but it's generally the monies go back into some type of student activity, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I just didn't want students to come with an idea and then have the idea go nowhere because, you know, we said something. So I'm hoping that students would be industrious and follow through with bringing it to a committee and seeing
Absolutely.
what will happen with it. I didn't want to discourage. Thank you.
And probably might be a nice fit for the site council to look at as they review the handbook, because it's something that would be included,
Yes.
which is, yeah, so it's that time of year
But it
again.
would
so-
have to get talked about
Yeah.
because handbooks would be coming up soon.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments, school committee comments?
I actually have one comment, and more of something that maybe I just want to get on the agenda. I understand we talked about it in the past before. I wasn't here, so I don't know. Blizzard bags for like winter, for snow and stuff like that. Today is probably not the right place, but I'd like to at least get it on the agenda just to see, you know, my understanding is you had discussions about that before. If we could just maybe revisit that and just see if it's appropriate, it's something that we want to look at.
We can
Okay?
certainly add that to the February agenda.
Okay.
And this way, Dr. Kazanec can come prepared with what work had been done and some more information. That works.
Absolutely. We have a subcommittee, I forget how many meetings they've had, but we certainly do that for February.
Thank you.
Let me back, a subcommittee, so if it's, has it already been beaten to death, or is it?
No.
No.
Not at all. I'm gonna have to defer. I don't remember when the first meetings were. Kate, do you remember when?
Okay.
It was,
I don't, but I know they're ongoing.
yeah, they're ongoing. I have not doubled back with Shantae Tilson, who's actually chairing the committee. But I know that they've had several meetings, but I will definitely get an update on
Perfect,
that.
so we get an update, awesome, thank you.
And there was some guidance sent out by Desi
Yes.
about you have to provide your plan to them.
Okay.
It didn't sound like they wanted to hard stamp approve it, but they were looking to make sure it was a reasonable one. So there was some other things that
Yep.
came out, I think at the end of the summer, to
Okay.
talk about the use of blizzard bags. So, but thank you, we'll engage in discussion in February.
Thank you.
The FY20 school year calendar, this is just new business, because we're gonna need to get on this. And I'm sure Dr. Kaznet will reconvene his calendar committee.
We have a date, or we put out the,
Rounded up the committee to make sure
so
everything's.
the committee has all said yes. We're gonna doodle, we're kicking out there to see what appropriate date. We actually have the mock-up, just to, what it looks like, and then we'll go from there, and we'll obviously report back out. It didn't take long last time. It's the template is completed, and as always, we'll have a couple variations for you to.
Do we have a student rep on that committee?
Again, that is, we just sent it out. We probably don't have one this time. So we'd have to reach out to whom, we'll have Ms. Vassal reach out to the, we did that last year, so.
All right, the next item of new business was the treasurer position. Just wanted to bring that up to see where we were with our current treasurer, if we're going to need to look at posting a job. We're looking,
Yep, she is currently working till the end of the year.
the end of fiscal year, or end of,
Fiscal.
so it was June 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where we're at with that.
So we should probably think about posting something. I think the last time we did for the treasurer position, we had a subcommittee, 2 people that were appointed or volunteered to do any sort of interviewing. So I'll put it out to the committee. Do we want to take any volunteers at this point that would like to be involved in hiring for the treasurer position, so that once the job gets posted, we can act quickly and we
I'll
don't
do
need. I know. It loves this stuff. So we have 1 volunteer. Do we have another volunteer that would like to work with Vicki on doing the interviews? Jeff? Okay, so when you're ready to engage and get a job posted out there, Jeff and Vicki will be the right people, but I will take, and let's do an official vote by the committee on making that happen, just it's no question. So I would take a motion that we appoint Vicki Chartier and Jeff Marks to interview and look at and bring forth back to the committee after the fact a recommendation for a new treasurer.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So unanimous. Thank you for volunteering.
So would the job specs come to this committee before we'll look at interviewing, the school committee sees the job specs?
And
The job description, I believe,
There's nothing
Yeah.
changed.
There's, I know I had shared, Nora's had put up a model treasure, one that I know I'd shared, so I don't know if we had wanted to update ours in any way, shape, or form, but perhaps that could be the first step if you wanted to draft something and just send it out to the committee that would look at it and send the comments. Thank you. Yeah.
And also, we're very happy with this current treasurer. So if there's any indication that this might work for her longer, we don't want to.
Push her out the point, no, we don't.
Yeah.
Tammy wants
Yes.
to stay, or after
Yeah.
that's fine.
Just saying.
Yeah, so when June 30th rolls to December 31st, we're okay with
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
So, no, that's very good. Yeah, we are very happy with her performance, so she keeps us on the straight and narrow, so thank you. We do have a vote on some surplus items. My mouse just stopped working. So the surplus items are some surplus technology equipment. There's a list, and of course this is online, so for those of you who do not have this online, let me see if I can, how long it is, and maybe I can just read the items real quick. So, well, you know what, there's 19 desktops, 6 laptops, 6 projectors, 24 monitors, 3 overhead projectors, 2 printers, 2 pieces of miscellaneous equipment that include a speaker and VCR, and then 8 miscellaneous boxes of wires and just random pieces of equipment. So that is what the technology request is. Items listed are non-functional and have been taken out of service due to age, or they are unrepairable and can no longer be supported by our current systems and are to be transferred to an authorized recycler for environmentally responsible, secure disposal. So if no one has any objections to going off what I just read, I would take a motion to surplus this technology equipment as, so I have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Do you have a second? Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Carried unanimously. We do have one other surplus list, which was some books. Let's see. There are, dispose of the following outdated curriculum resources, supplies, and books that are surplus. There's 30 copies of The Push Cart Wars by Gene Merrill, 30 copies of Snow in August by Pete Hamill, 11 copies of Heck You with Jackie Robinson by Barbara Cohn, 30 copies of The Questing Game by Ellen Raskin, 40 copies of The Phantom Toll Booth, 30 copies of The Pinballs, 30 copies of the following: Thunder Rolling in the Mountains, Miracles on Maple Hill, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, Sherlock Holmes, The Hound of Baskerville, Culinary Essentials, The Burning Questions of Bingo Brown, Wood Song, and Slake's Limbo. So that is the list of books and/or supplies and curriculum resources that we are looking to surplus.
Is it because they're in a condition that a child couldn't read the Phantom Toll Booth?
Yeah, so our library media specialist has been working on culling the collection and getting it in good shape before she recommends anything be she recommends to me that anything be surplused. She contacts teachers, she looks at the condition and the use of the materials. So it's gone through those steps.
Okay, so it's use. There was a motion.
So I would take a motion to dispose of the items that I read. I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second. Any other discussions or questions? No, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstained? And it passes unanimously. All right, field trip.
Figurative language.
We have 2 field trips that have been brought to us for approval. They are the regular 7th and 8th grade field trips, the field trip to DC, and the field trip to Ferry Beach. So those forms were on the website as well, but they basically are the same exact thing as the previous year. I'm looking at for 8th grade because it says that explicitly. And 7th grade as well, they're going back to the ecology school. Is it the same one we've always gone to?
No.
Just got changed.
Got
Yes,
changed.
okay, so instead of the,
Springs
and where's that?
Resort, it's in Cold Springs, Maine.
Poland Springs, Maine.
Okay. What was that for? The ecology school, they used to go to Ferry Beach.
Why did they
Now-
change it?
The people,
No, yes, no.
the people at Ferry Beach thought they'd have they're building at a new location, and they thought it would be ready, and it's not. So Poland Springs is giving their entire place to Narragansett and another place.
Okay, very good.
We had a parent meeting about it.
And I'm assuming there are no other details about these 2 trips that have changed then. Same trips, they're fundraising.
The plan book is still in place.
I would take a motion to accept, we could either do both of them or individually.
Yeah, I do have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I did look at the applications online, and if we could just do a copy and paste, it says same as last year, but honestly, I have no idea what last year was, you know? So, I mean, a lot of the information was missing, so actually, I read the second one was pretty detailed, but moving forward, if we could just make sure the information is in there so that,
Newcomers.
I know newcomers know what we're talking about, it would be appreciated, yes.
Well, also, it's good to have it on file for having approved it this year.
Just trying to see if any, all the details, if there's anything. So it's interesting, in the, there is a lesson plan guide. So all of the things that said same as last year, and actually all those details are
Is
part
exactly
of the write-up in there.
It's in the
So it is on.
And I
the
did flag,
sheet, so yeah.
I actually did flag a bunch of it down below, so.
It's 12 in the details.
Yeah, so you probably should have said just see attached details instead of the same as last year. So I would entertain a motion to approve the DC trip for the 8th grade and the, we're calling it Ferry Beach, but it sounds like it should be Poland
It should be
Springs
Poland.
trip.
It should be
It's the
Poland.
ecology school trip for the 7th grade.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, both trips have been approved. The NRSD wellness policy, this is something that I know we've had a whole group of people come together at regular intervals to discuss updating our wellness policy. Our representative, Ms. Robichaud, has sat on that committee, and in discussion with her, what we'd like to do is bring this to assign it to the policy subcommittee to take a look at and review, and then we'll follow the normal policy process. We'll bring it to a first reading and then a second reading because it is really part of our policy book. So the policy subcommittee, this is Koschel's committee, we'll take a look at that at the next scheduled meeting, and we'll go from there. And just so everyone knows, the policy is online, so feel free to take a look at it and send any comments you may have to Mrs. Koschel so that we'll have them for the subcommittee meeting as well. All right. Just as a standing, we have a superintendent report. If there was anything the superintendent wanted to report on.
I think the budget is, that would be enough.
Correspondence, there I don't believe is any to review, and Mrs. Barney shaking her head, so nothing came in today. Curriculum instruction, we have Ms. Calise here to give us a quick update on, looks like actions resulting from the 2018 Mcas analysis. So if you would like to.
Sure. Do you want me to talk from here?
Sure.
Okay.
Can everybody hear?
Yep. I'm going to send these around in case anyone wants a paper copy. So you all asked me to do this because we had discussions, sorry, you're like in between two people.
Do you want to come sit at the table? Would that be easier?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to bob and weave the whole
I won't
time.
mind.
Bob and me. You asked me to report on actions we've taken as a result of our review of the 2018 MCAS. We had some detailed discussions about the 2018 MCAS earlier in the year. So I looked at a few target areas. Obviously, there's many, many things that we're doing, and tried to correspond what actions we took for each of those areas. I would say, you can read the detail, I won't go through it line by line, but the major areas were where we were below the state on things related to writing. And so last year we had sustained writing professional development through Rebus Associates, and as a result, you can see the 3 and 4 scores were a little more in line with the state. They're continuing that work, and now this year we've extended that work up into middle and high school. That's a sustained effort of 3 professional developments with the consultant, and then we'll probably follow that up with some additional work as well. So that's the major part of it, to really address how writing is supported in the middle and high in all content areas. Because as you get up in the grades, the proportion of reading and writing related to nonfiction and content area materials increases, and the literature percentage-wise decreases. So it can't all be on the shoulders of just an ELA teacher. Some of that other content area writing has to come from other areas. So that's been really good. We've finished our second session. Teachers in middle and high worked together in the first session to develop rubrics and writing prompts aligned with the MCAS, what MCAS is looking for, and then administered the writing prompts to their students. Then in the second session, brought that material back, worked together to calibrate their expectations, which is not something we always get an opportunity to do in schools. So teachers sat in teams, calibrated, and came to agreement on what they feel, an above piece of writing was, as opposed to an at level or below level and so forth. We're going to repeat that process with a second prompt, and then that'll become part of our system of what we do. Elementary did it last year. It's a little different because they're self-contained, and so they all have all the kids for ELA. But they continued that work this year, so the PD wasn't just done in those few days and then it was gone. They continued, and they did a beginning of year prompt with their students and calibrated that, and now they'll be doing a middle year. So that's a big piece of it. Also, as you know, we've talked a couple times about instituting this algebra concepts course for students because as we adjust to the new standards in mathematics at the high school, there were gaps created for students, so that's addressing that. You're probably aware that in 2019, in a couple months, the high school will be taking the Mcas 2.0 for the first time. So all of our other grades have taken the new version of Mcas, but the high school has still been on what we call the legacy Mcas. So this year will be the first time that our high school students will be taking that Mcas 2.0 assessment, and as a result, teachers have had to adapt their curriculum and prepare students a little bit differently for the expectations of that assessment. So there are various steps here. There's more detail than I'm mentioning, and you can read it, but I just want to point out the last piece was that when we went through our accountability status earlier in the year, we talked about how different categories of items in the accountability system weigh differently depending on the grade level and so forth, and that the accountability system is entirely different from what it has been in the past. There's no more level 1, level 2, level 3 schools. That's in the old system. And in this new system, we realized that 10% of our accountability measures at all schools were related to attendance. And that caused us to look more closely at attendance, and that was multi-pronged. The first was to really clean up and streamline all of the attendance codes that we use, because different schools use different things and so forth, and it may have resulted in reporting that was not as accurate as it could have been to the state. So we've done that. All the schools are using a smaller list of streamlined attendance codes, and the buildings have all been making efforts to communicate to parents in the community the importance of attendance on students' success.
Just as a
Quick
question,
nutshell of a lot of work.
the state did send out a survey asking for feedback, and I gave them a lot of feedback on attendance and APs, a whole bunch of these accountability measures that I see a lot of issue with. But I think it's important that we explain to parents and the community, and I see we've done some communication, but I'd
Yes.
like to actually make some statements here where it's being
Sure.
filmed, that when a student comes into school, and you guys are going to tell me if I'm wrong, if they leave without completing, has it 3 periods? If you miss more than 3 periods, you're considered absent. So, I just left early. It depends on how early, so that could be counted against the school as an absent day, even though the student might have been there.
Right.
Also, excused and unexcused don't mean anything
No,
in
they
this
don't.
particular accountability metrics.
That's right.
It does for the school, because obviously if you've got a medical issue, the school has different things that happen as far as makeup work and whatnot. But the state doesn't care about excused versus unexcused. Are you sending us a message? Okay. What's that message?
To our
That's
phone.
me? Oh my God.
We're trying to be covert without.
And everyone
Everybody's
buzzed.
shaking. So I just think it's important that parents understand, when we talk about this as part of our accountability measure, that the state has a very different view of attendance than the school does. And again, I have my personal opinions on some of this, but
Yeah, so as far as the state's concerned, you're here or you're not here. That's pretty much as simple as it gets.
District can make its accommodation, you can say that, this is an approved or a not approved absence, and that's really for credits and whatever else may be going on depending on the age level. But short of the real dire medical, which can be, documented, it is a binary. It's a 1 or a 0. You're either here or you're not. They don't get into that. So it's pretty.
And I think the
Pretty strict.
the reason from their point of view for that is that regardless of the reason, if you're not present, you're not learning. So it's part of the accountability system, which looks at other factors, including MCAS and growth and other things, but that's the connection. is that if you're not here, for whatever the reason is, you're not benefiting from the instruction.
Which, I agree that makes sense to a certain point.
Yeah.
As I said, I get my hackles up when I start thinking that it's impacting that accountability rating that we're
Yeah.
given, because we don't control when a family decides to take a vacation, or is out an extended period of time for, I'll say, a non-medical emergency, because we can provide supports for homebound instruction in
Correct.
certain extended absences. So it does put the district in a bad position, which is why when the administration and the teachers say, we really want you to be here, there's a reason for that, and it does impact the district when you look at how we're looked at by the state. 2 cents. Anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you for the update. It's good to see that we're doing things with the data.
Does anyone know how the weather is out there? Still snowing.
It is
Blinding squall.
blizzarding.
All right, so the only thing left on our agenda is the upcoming
policies.
meeting, the next upcoming meeting. Nope, there should be no policies this time. The next meeting is for Wednesday, February 13th at 6 o'clock. That's our regular school committee meeting. We do have a 5 o'clock scheduled beforehand for finance. And based on where we end up at the end of our discussion on finance tonight, if we need to schedule another meeting, we'll do so. But as of right now, that's the only finance meeting on the books at the moment. 5 o'clock on the 13th, 6 o'clock on the 13th for the regular meeting. So with that being said, yeah, we can do that tonight. We also talked at the last meeting about the next tri-board meeting with the Phillipston and Templeton select boards and the school committee, and then inviting any other board members from both towns to attend. It looks like February 11th, which would not be this coming Monday, but the following Monday at 5 o'clock here in the library. Mrs. Farley saying, yep. So that meeting will happen Monday, February 11th at 5 o'clock in the library. Okay, so we have our continuing discussion tonight on the budget. When we last met at the finance meeting on the 16th, and then we had a shorter discussion at the regular meeting. We set this meeting up, 1, to add additional agenda items we had to go over, but 2, to spend some more time on the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Casvan and Ms. Geister.
We'll tag team this because honestly, the information, I think that first off, what you have before you is the updated version of 5 scenarios. Really, what we tried to do is we took from the last conversations back, saying what would it look like if everything that we expense out of school choice, we left school choice completely, quote unquote, held harmless. What would that look like? And then we then went from there to different scenarios, really mixing in either insurance taken, in other words, not being expensed through school choice, X amount of staff members not expensed through school choice. And so, the requests, put into the general, against the general fund, not the school choice. So we took the best, we took the broadest look at each of those. Now, you can mix and match, I suppose, but literally we could have had probably 30 scenarios, X, Y, or Z. These are really the jumping off points that make the most sense in order to present. So, obviously you have the directions, you have the descriptions in back, we have the color coordinated. That was the purpose. Thank you, Marie. And again, I think it's, this. I think that's, we looked at this before, but it certainly, we didn't have the numbers. didn't have the state numbers until last week.
I'd say actually probably should step back and
Yeah.
talk about the lackluster state numbers. Chapter 70 numbers came out. As everyone knows, we are in a held harmless, or we are indebted to the state, if you prefer to say it that way. In 2005 or 6, the state decided that they would never take money away from you. So as your enrollments declined, the monies, when they came to figuring out how much the state would say they would give you, would never decrease. So, which is great because we have experienced declining enrollments and we didn't lose money. So as everyone knows, there's this lovely big formula that the state has, and they put in enrollment numbers and they calculate against things, and that number comes out to $8,669,366 of foundation aid. But last year we received $9,912,744, which is a difference of actually, and then when they calculate this year, they're going to give us $9,938,544 line 10. So the difference between what our foundation aid calculated to and what they're giving us is almost $1.3 million, so $1,269,000. So those are additional funds that the state is giving us, and that's what, when we talk hold harmless, that's what we're talking about. It's a lot of money, and the unfortunate part for all of us is until our enrollment numbers increase, and we were having the discussion, it's probably about 113 kids, 112, 113 students, we will always be in a hold harmless position. So that's a lot of bodies that we would need to bring into the district in order to move us out of this hold harmless position. Just as a note, most every regional district is in hold harmless. Interestingly enough, Ash West this year is the first year they're out of hold harmless, so they're seeing some additional funds come in. But for schools around us, they're really the only one, I think, that is not in a hold harmless position. So that's where we are. The only additional aid that we're expecting from the state is $20 per pupil, which is $25,800, which isn't going to buy us anything. The other thing that happened, because this is important when we start looking at our towns, is when they look at the minimum required contributions by the towns. This year was a new equalized valuation year. So every 2 years, the state comes up with what it thinks your property values in your town are. And then they take an income assessment and they use those two figures to do some calculations, and they tell the towns how much they should be providing in support. Both towns have seen an increase in what they're being asked to provide. Templeton's increase is much more significant. Obviously, they have more pupils, but even so, somehow it calculated that they weren't at where they needed to be, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I think the way someone explained it to me was the governor, everybody's heard that he added $200 million to the education budget this year overall for the state, but in doing so, with the new equalized values and income numbers, he burdened towns with $233 million more of minimum contributions. Last year it was another $200 million. The year before was $180 million. So even though, yes, it's great you're adding more money, the towns and local municipalities are bearing the burden of it. So it was not a good report all around. So that's my income assessment. You want to add anything?
Well,
Addressed
yes.
everybody?
So the hope is that the formula needs to change. We've heard this before. We know that, but it can't happen overnight. That's what we know. In order to move this ship, the formula needs to change because without it, unless 112 foundation level children move into this district, we're not going to realize the monies that we feel that, of course, that we need to operate. As we said, we're about 113 students below what that foundation was, what that foundation number is. We haven't seen 1,400 students, right on being rough, but since 2013, roughly, we were at 1,420. And again, remember foundation students that live in Templeton or Phillipston that go to a public school, not just here in this district, but a public entity in the state of Massachusetts. That does not include kids who go to private schools, nor does it count students who are homeschooled. So if they school choice someplace else, yes, we initially get the $11,000 or and some change in the foundation, but then basically strip away $5,000 of those dollars. That goes to the receiving district, and we receive the rest. Okay, so foundation are school-aged children whom are going to a public school, charter or otherwise.
And speaking of charter, here's another thing. Everyone remembers question 2 from a year ago. So we are responsible for paying the charter schools to the tune of this year's, with the governor's budget proposal, we pay almost $205,000. But the money that we get for our reimbursement for charter school tuition is $20,000. So we're already in the hole, $180,000 for the students in Phillipston and Templeton who school choice to the charter school.
And they have a very relatively low number of students who do.
And of course, then there's also the circuit breaker and the special ed reimbursements, and we know that we don't really recoup as much as the state says we should get, and regional transportation, as we all know. In the law says 100% subject to appropriation, which is okay because we don't have the money to pay, but it always comes in. And this year, the amount, I believe, he was it flat this year to last year? Because last year it increased, but it was a flat amount. But when there's more people taking pieces of the pie, even if it's flat, that means that we perhaps don't quite get the same amount of money. So all of these things factor into a revenue picture that isn't as rosy as you would like.
So there's a lot of different things that we could jump off, talk about, etc. There is, the level service, what positions that includes being level service because of the, how we've reorganized the district. We've talked about those before, obviously. We can certainly do that again. I'm sure what we've done in order to do that. I don't want to go in a direction that the committee doesn't want to go in. So if there's, I can go kind of through that a little bit, and if you want to stop, we can go, or we can just go through the scenarios, or want to make sure
I think what would be very helpful right off the bat is if we take a look at our income sheet, and when we look at the income sheet and what the minimum contributions are and what last year's additional appropriations by the towns were, what number do we come up with? And I'm looking here and I see 19,366,000, correct? And if I take that versus our scenarios, say these 5 scenarios, I'm assuming that the budget shortfall number is what that puts to.
Yes.
So when I'm looking at, we don't use any school choice funds, it's $2.5 million. But that includes all requests and not using any school choice funds. So I think just taking a quick look at, now that these scenarios have been updated with the few changes we had asked for, to see where we are. So does anyone have a specific direction or that they'd like to go in discussing? I know we're all tasked to look at this information beforehand and come to the table with some comments, questions, potential direction that we were looking to head at. I think one of the things that we would like to have before our tri-board meeting is to have a fairly good stake in the ground as to what number we're looking at. So we'll throw that out there for someone else to jump in and comment on.
I'd like to just start off by saying that the school choice, I'm not a big fan of seeing revolving costs in the school choice fund. So I'd like to eliminate anything like that. Anything that is revolving, right off the bat, I'd like to say, one-time costs, I can see, we can talk about putting some of those in there, but anything that is reoccurring, salaries and things like that, I think really needs to come right out of that account to begin with, okay? Just to start off, okay? I
I
don't
just
know.
throw in that we got our insurance number today, and it's about $90,000 less than what I used to figure this. So all your shortfalls, just
$90,000
less.
And we didn't receive that till 3 o'clock this afternoon. We could not reprint these, which is yeah.
So the question that I
We're
have
gonna tell
is,
you.
when we're looking at all of these, numbers, what is the amount that is directly associated with opening of the new building? So what have we needed to add an increment to the budget?
So, right, so if I may just go to the slide real quick, I'm gonna go to a couple slides. So, remember, we've already talked about utility costs, that was asked of us, I don't know, months ago, it has to be at this point. We did two different things, if you remember, we went with what the SMMA projected model suggested. They basically are in charge of building the building, so they built these buildings before and they ran a bunch of projections and they said anywhere between 140 to 150,000 with a 30% contingency, which didn't include water or sewer, which, okay, but that's the model that they stuck with and that's what we pay them to do, other than to, of course, manage, to build a building. What Anne-Marie and I did is we simply said, okay, the building that you're currently sitting in right now, the new school will be roughly 45% in terms of square footage of this building right here. So what we did is we took the most available numbers that we had, because remember, we took the two elementary schools, one TC, which of course is rubble and is no longer, and Baldwinville Elementary, and we used basically we used those numbers to generate what we would estimate if we used what we're calling the 45% estimate model, what it would cost for the utilities of the new building. Given, of course, that the new building is far more efficient and all of those things, but we were just looking at pure cost. Interestingly, you see that we're around 190, we call it $200,000. When you look at the SMMA projected model, that is, we're pretty close to that.
So what did we put in?
So grand total, right. So grand total I wanted to show you that. So we put in the contingency, Anne-Marie?
You put in the
45%, sorry. So we put in the 45% number, which is $199,750. And when you start looking at the staffing that we talked about before.
How much was already in our budget for all of this? So what was the net?
So the
That's
net
the
was,
important number.
yeah,
What's the net?
well, Baldwinville Elementary would have been the only number in there currently, and that was 36,000.
So that's 36.
If you add the two buildings together, it would be 52,000.
But we had already taken
We had
out
already, right.
the TC
taken out the
numbers
TC
already,
numbers,
so
right.
we've got to add all that.
Exactly.
Okay.
I have a question. What is the school going to be called?
Templeton Center. I'm sure the elementary school will fall.
I bet people have asked.
Templeton
if it's
Center.
gonna be Templeton Elementary or Templeton.
Templeton Center is what we have on the, I'm looking down at Mr. Mason.
Right, yeah. It's really a selectmen's call, right, to the town building, so.
But we have Templeton Center on most of the, on the documents that we
We
have.
had to put something,
Right.
yes.
So that's $163,187 that we've had to increase our budget by, specific to the fuel costs and utility costs for the new building. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have
So, staff.
staff.
So, without which we've gone through before, but we have, and so when you look at the district staffing needs, I'm sorry, I put the one. You are looking at the FAR number, which is 328,166.
But those aren't all due to the new building.
No, oh, so just the new
Just the new
building, my
building,
fault.
that's what I'm
I'm
trying
sorry.
and
I'm sorry.
understand,
Yep,
so
I'm
that
sorry.
when we have
Yep.
the discussion, some of this is
I did have the right
non-negotiable.
side. Yes. So I did have the right side. So according, just to the building, it'd be 175, 917, so we have zeroed out those other positions, so, yeah.
And what other expenses have we added into, do we have any maintenance monies in there?
Yeah.
That's, and that may not be significant, but as I said, to me, this kind of starts the discussion of what's non-negotiable.
Yeah. Yeah, we have elevator maintenance we had to add, which we didn't have before. I put 5,000, that's what our other schools have. Assuming any of that for a new elevator? Yeah, Baldwinville was just a wash. I just took the building maintenance of Baldwinville and added it into TC.
So other than that 5,000 then, for the elevator maintenance, which is something new. So just to recap, so we have $163,000 in utilities, about $176,000 in staffing, and another $5,000 in elevator, so these.
Utilities we have.
Maintenance.
200,
Maintenance.
I'm sorry,
Maintenance.
that's the 15. Are we talking about maintenance? Yes, 15.
Oh, you was 15?
Right.
Well, we
You just
took it
switched
from
it from
Baldwinville to
Well,
sorry,
Templeton,
Baldwin.
so-
Yeah,
It's
and that's
it's a wash.
a tricky one too,
So-
because,
Yeah.
with the agreement, the town's got to take care of, but I know we need to.
So what-
So,
Would you apply the same formula, 45% of what the maintenance is for this building, to the new building?
Well, I did that with like custodial supplies, like,
No.
This is-
But
No,
you
but-
can't, because of the regional agreement, we can't make those assumptions. The district pays for all the maintenance on this building, whereas the towns pick up anything considered
True, but
capital,
they-
so it's, but
But they get a cost.
there's something,
Yes.
yeah.
We thought that the maintenance cost, maintenance like, oh gee, look, something broke. The very first year, literally maintenance cost, it would be under, we know that it'll be under warranty. So we literally just move those over. Now, if we're talking about supplies, paper towels, whatever, I'm trying to think of something. We literally just took, we did the 45% rule, and applied that to Templeton Center, just to get a sheer cost.
So what's that incremental?
27,000, and I took out, so 21,000.
So an additional 21,000
Yeah.
for supplies? Any other expenses that we have specific to the new Templeton Center Elementary?
It's not just the, it's specific because of the new building, right? Because
Yes.
some of the costs
Oh,
are
sorry,
actually because
yes,
it's the
that's,
too.
yes, that's actually
Because
very
of the new
good.
building.
You're correct, I should restate that. Any specific costs due to us opening up the new elementary school and reconfiguring, bringing fifth grade back to all of those elementaries?
In terms of a cost educationally to do that, when we look, the move will be part of the contract. I mean, it's boxes. No furniture will be moved, as we all know, it's a turnkey. In terms of any type of supplies needed in general, when I say no, FF&E is what I really should say, right? Furniture, fixtures, equipment, that has already been discussed and already been under order. So if there were special things for science lab of the fifth grade, that has been taken care of through the project, et cetera. So there is, to date, there's no cost in terms of that, on that, like the fifth grade moving over. We should not.
Educational supplies, we pretty much took Baldwinville's numbers, added some numbers from fifth grade, so,
Right.
yeah.
Their supply lists, like we would do normally, that would be a normal
So,
budgetary.
that being said, then, if we take utilities, the new staffing requirements for the district, the elevator maintenance, which is brand new for that building, and additional supplies needed for the building, we're looking at $365,104. So that right there is a non-negotiable, at least in my mind, a non-negotiable add to our baseline, just to open up that new building and move the district forward next year, before we even start discussing any of the other things that we need to add. may or may not be non-negotiable. Thank you.
Black, we didn't have
Well, we
a,
didn't have a black, okay,
yes,
good.
because that was,
And I'm like,
it
why
was
is there no-
very, everything would be there, so we didn't.
So the purple is the first one. So when we look at the sheet then, just to make sure that I am understanding, the last column is level service. And level service includes adding what's necessary to reconfigure the district for opening up the new Templeton Center elementary school.
So doesn't the green, right?
Yes, the difference between the last two columns is one of them does not have the ELA curriculum coming from school choice, the other one does, so it increases your school choice number. You can see the difference in that. Okay.
So
Because the bottom line.
the bottom line didn't change, so it's just making me understand why.
It's just more coming out of your school choice. And you can see that on the backside, what that would do to your school
So-
choice budget if you went that way.
So it's $137,000 that,
Both sections, yeah.
Yeah,
You
if
wouldn't
you
have said
actually have an individual sheet that gives you a rundown of like the balance of school choice.
what I find interesting, I'm sorry, is that when we look at the actual general fund number, the pink represents, the middle one represents,
Everything stays in.
and all requests above level service are funded. Whereas the, sorry, wrong spot, I'm confusing myself. Go ahead, because I'm confused.
Last time, there was a comment Vicki made about health insurance that I agreed with, that we should be taking, yeah, so that's blue. That's the blue, that's the blue, it's this one here.
Well, If I
Right,
may, I would suggest the 90,000 that we just saved this afternoon in group insurance, you just automatically apply that towards health insurance to reduce it on the school choice side.
Take the savings, just.
So on this blue one here, so let's, we moved 200,000, and I know we already decided we had the 90 in there, so, the ELA curriculum, is that still in the general fund, or did that go to school choice?
Oh, that's eliminated. It's eliminated.
It's eliminated, like, not in these numbers at all?
In the blue column, yes.
The second column here, no?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so we're not even providing for,
Because the 200,000 in health went to general fund.
so did we move that, so we moved that
So-
to school choice? Is that correct?
You can, but that's not what these numbers represent. It's just all, the blue column is all requests above level service are eliminated. You can pick and choose which ones you want, we can do different scenarios, but
So we did everything, nothing was being paid for out of school choice. That's the first one, obviously, that's number one, or the. Number two is that we just took everything that's above level service and just said, you're out, just cut it. And then, obviously, when you start getting into the next, either 3, 4, or 5 in the pink, green, and purple, you start getting into either it stays in, or, it level service but no extra requests, and then so we tried to give variances, but we could literally it gets really murky if you mix and match. And we figured the committee would discuss mixing and matching. We were just trying to give the baseline.
we should probably talk about, like, look at the requests, look at the school choice things, and look at those and see what you find priority and where you want to put it.
So these are out of all the budgets? You don't have those in any of them, right?
In the first one,
The first
$2
one.
million
The first one.
one.
Yeah.
So all of the other ones, none of this general fund budget request eliminated shows up?
Correct.
Is there a
It's-
priority list?
this
I'm
is-
not understanding.
So where are the requests?
The request
It's
is
gone
in
from
the
that,
last
it's
one.
gone from the rest. That's right, yeah.
Actually,
I
it's on
was
the back of
confused.
this page.
Yeah. And this
Yes,
one
we
is-
have.
That's what they recommend for pay of school choice.
So this is the request.
Margaret?
Yes,
Those are the
these
requests.
ones here.
And Jeff wanted something with this.
We have a priority list,
That's just staffing. I just left it there. I can.
So in this second scenario, have we also moved the UA teachers out of school choice?
No, because you guys felt that it was more important to have health insurance than teachers.
Okay. So I just want to make sure
We call this the
because we
health
asked you for a
insurance
lot of
option.
things and I
You'd be interested to find that when you look at certain things, you'd be I was surprised that the numbers are they are very close to each other. So in other words, the curriculum was 120 some odd, and and X amount of teachers was almost the same amount. That's why you don't see these gigantic swings unless you are taking out or putting in health insurance, which is, a very large sum of money. So unless you're moving out huge numbers, the last couple scenarios, you're not going to see a lot because it's just generally level service with almost a tweak, but it's almost the same amount. It's just a different thing that's in.
I think that was the state. And the other important thing here is you're using 500,000 out of E&D on all of these scenarios.
Which you can
So there
adjust
isn't
that
a-
We can adjust that as well. We had to pick a number because
You have 635,000.
but again, we have,
I'm not in favor of taking more out.
that's why that number can be adjusted. Of course it can. We just went with an easy round number to keep numbers round.
No, my point is that you've used a lot of E&D in all of these scenarios, so
Yes.
you don't have that to go with.
On the back is the general fund budget request for students that are eliminated. Those are the asks above.
Yes,
Yeah, they're not,
They're not
they're
bad.
asked.
with their answers.
They're right.
We could have easily said eliminated, but we were just trying to. They're not.
I think the ELA curriculum is the highest priority.
So I guess I'm a little confused. So are these requests not in any of those budgets?
What was that?
It's in the first,
Just the first
just the one.
The GF budget requests eliminated.
They are in the first column, the black and yellow.
Black and yellow. That's why.
Think of it this way, you'd have almost, you'd have whatever we're going to, in school choice, just all to ourselves.
The last
We
column
wouldn't take any of them.
has the 8th grade science book and the ELA curriculum coming out of school choice in the last scenario. It does nothing for your shortfall because it's on the school choice side.
What is
But
our-
you can just,
No, go ahead. I was just gonna ask, what is our FY19 budget number for the general fund?
Right, we're 19.
I know I have it somewhere in this one.
It's 18,674,417.
Just wanna make sure I pulled the right number. So that's where we're starting from. Current year.
Our current income, right the way it stands with the numbers we have, is a 3.71% increase over last year's income.
So we're looking at $692,331.
Additional.
So we know that we've got. So that starts us off at 19,366,740.
Quite.
We don't say in the committee, oh my gosh, we need no growth assets for the town, correct?
No, we have a certified budget presented to the towns, who then decide if they need to have an override. So, but they can't do that until we certify a budget. So it,
Right, but we don't say you need to have no growth.
exactly.
But but at some point, you see the writing on the wall. Right?
Yeah, I think we've already said it. The override is in our future.
So here's my concern. Here's my concern though. Let's say we go with, we keep it, everything is school choice.
Status quo, we've always done. That is
Right,
unchanged.
right.
Just want to make sure.
It's like our one, how are we gonna move stuff out of it going forward? Because we don't have, you know what I mean?
So,
I don't think we have a choice, I think we have to move that.
I think you have to move, it is my opinion, I think that you can't do both. You can't move all the salaries that are in there and all of the health insurance.
Just remember, from last year, we had vice principal is already moved out of there over to the general fund side, and we have a 5th and a 6th grade teacher. So we've already moved almost $200,000 of salaries that were in there in FY19 over to the
But
general
my-
fund side.
My feeling is what we leave in there this year, we're gonna have to leave it going forward. Do you know what I mean? Because if this is the year that we're gonna have to, put all the cards out there. I'm not saying we can move all the health insurance out, because we have to spend the money somehow, I get that too. So, I'm just putting that out there.
It boils down for me, so staffing is one thing, which is very important, of course. Health insurance, though, is super duper. And I worry more about, school choice, because it does. This is not a, trajectory that just keeps rising. There's eventually going to be a ceiling, or whatever the case may be. I worry that the health insurance, because once that money's not there, that differential, which, the differential is what we've been very happy to see, which I will, show you right now, is that, look, the differential that's projected, because remember, we just get the preliminary in December. We're looking at $704,000. That's ours, right? And we've increased that over, but you will see it slow, right? 695, 704. Biggest jump was 17 to 18. That was great. But there eventually is a cap. There's only so many, I guess, so many kids who, we can fit. So there becomes, and we've talked about this the last couple of years, you get into the situation where if you are so reliant on school choice monies, you are destined for failure, and it's a quick fall, because there is only so many till we have stopped school choice, right? At the elementary levels, and everyone knows that. Middle and high school, sure, we take them when, but we couldn't take elementary kids now if we wanted, and that's the biggest ask. So we're reaching our ceiling, quite frankly, which is not a bad thing. That's okay. But we can't keep we cannot keep a recurring cost in school choice that fluctuates, which is health insurance. We don't know 1 year to the next what that percentage increase is going to be. We can project staff, because we know what staff are going to cost us 3 years from now, for the most part, right, through contracts, etc. Health insurance, that is a variable that we're concerned with. So, I mean, that's just, again, we've talked about this before, but what I think we're starting to see, by the way, we have more kids now than we've ever had, right? So that's great, but we're starting to cap out, folks. It's not going to keep going up. It just isn't. We don't have the space.
Well, and as you said, the feeder of the elementary
That's right.
isn't there, so we're going to see a drop off.
Sure.
Once
Yeah.
you hit middle school, capturing your school choice kids early,
Yeah,
district,
sure.
you move and step.
We could have, again, remember we said there was 50 some odd kids on the wait list, almost all elementary. We could have took 50 more if we wanted to. It isn't that, we just don't have the space to do that. And it's just, we're going to start seeing this to level off. Now, if I may, unless you've got some questions, I was going to go to
No.
that. So, go.
No, it just makes me resentful of this formula, this mess the state puts us in. The towns that we represent have already seen an increase in this budget coming up. There are some school districts in the state that don't take school choice students, they don't have to. And they have everything that they need because of what they have. And we have to educate the students in the same way that they do with what we have in front of us. Which, it's just a very sad situation. And we do it. I mean, we educate them the same way these others do, but a lot has to fit in. And it's just not right. With their mandates and everything, it's very sad.
It is,
It doesn't help, but
yeah.
I
No,
have
and I
to
think
say it.
the other question then is, we do make money on school choice. I hate to say make money. There is a differential. And it is right to absorb some costs in that account because that's the right thing to do. I get concerned though because we're eating up the bulk of our E&D. We have one or two in district that are out of district placements. And where are we going for this money? We're not leaving ourselves with extra dollars around to take into consideration any extraneous expense that may come in with new families moving to the district or whatever identifications we have. And that makes me very, very concerned.
We've had 2 out-of-district placements between the last meeting and this meeting, the last 2 weeks.
At what cost, what do you say?
Well, it's a partial year, but probably $50,000-$60,000, and then transportation on top of that.
It probably cost us 70 each when we realized the entire cost. Roughly. No, 12.
And remember, the formula and the beauty how it is, doesn't care how many kids you actually have. It uses a percentage of the foundation enrollment number. They just make an assumption that that's a good number. So 3.8% of your population.
At the same time, what scares me is when we actually put these numbers in and pick what we're gonna pick, given that we have to really be convinced that we can go all the way with these numbers, that what we put in there is justified if somebody, if we get there and the state comes in and they say, well, what do you have that in there? So everything really has to be vetted with the eyes of somebody from the state coming in and saying, did you really need that $125,000 on the textbook, or could you continue with what you had? That's the kind of thing they're going to say. So we have to really be sure that what's in the budget is something that we can live with all the way through the process. And that's scary.
Yeah, and I think to that point, So things like that ELA curriculum would have to be taken out of school choice. It's a one-time expense and belongs in one-time dollars. So match it up any way we can. If we're going to include it in the budget, if that's the committee's priority, then because, as you said, when the state comes in and they look at your general fund, they're gonna say, did you need that? Could you put your payment somewhere else? And so I think you're absolutely correct.
I think that, yes, I think that that is a very fair assessment of what the state would come in to look at. I would say, though, when you take the entire picture, so what have we done in the entire picture? Well, one, we, the district, the school district, took on the entire cost of the new bleachers. We could have easily passed that on to the towns. That is, when I say easily, it is an expense because it's the regional that would fit the criteria of going to both Templeton and Phillipston to say, hey, look, we need to fix it. No one could argue that those bleachers need to be replaced. And so, but we did that because, well, we felt it was the prudent thing to do, and there were some mitigating factors. We couldn't really wait to do that. We couldn't wait until numbers had settled in other places to do that.
But I'm going to bring up a point, though.
Sure.
We are passing those costs along via the budget process
Sure.
to the towns. And I got to tell you, I put my taxpayer hat on. I'm not going for a debt exclusion. We've just added that to our base,
Sure.
which should fall off once they go away. So I think we're being very, very careful with using an example like that because it's not.
Well, the debt exclusion would fall off, but not this.
You could
And
pay
it
off
would
the
pay
loan
off.
with school choice.
You could pay it off with school choice.
See, and then
See, that's the
and that's something that we should
Right.
look at doing that. So these are the exact
Right.
things, because when I look at what do we have in our general fund that truly is not revolving, you don't have a lot of things in there that you could say are one-time expenses.
Right.
So we really should be apportioning anything to the right bucket. And I know healthcare is just so big. Is it feasible that we probably do that? I think you could make an argument that we do have a net of X kids with school choice, that even though it's not a true matchup of positions, you could say those 5 positions, even though we identify them just because it makes it easy for us for budgeting, it's an allocation of 5 positions over the district. So I think you can do
That's
that.
good, yeah.
But I think that does need to get moved. We need to flip that and make sure that we're aligning things. Because at the end of the day, I don't know how many years we took the potential debt out for.
It's short term, it's a state house note, so it rolls every summer. So the cost of the bleachers were like $350,000. So you could, we have it scheduled to pay, I think it's $90,000 is what the principal and interest for.
5 years, whatever.
Yeah, so, you could eliminate that and take and pay off the balance this summer with your school choice money. Well, no,
The whole number, yeah.
Or just the portion, any
you could.
portion.
Whatever portion. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly,
Yeah.
you could do whatever.
So, but included in the current number, there was only that 90,000.
Right.
So to affect these numbers, it would be 90,000.
What I will also say, and I will have to say it again, is that the district has worked real hard. One of the things that came up when I did my entry survey and meetings is that people felt that the school really was just always looking for a handout, that's a quote. So in other words, here the hands, we're the school, we're cute, we're kids, give us money. And that literally was a quote. So what we've done over the last 3 years, though, and I'm going to call it revenue, folks. I realize what revenue is, but I'm going to, monies that we, however we do business, that we can affect, that we can actually either increase or decrease if we don't do the right thing. One of them is school choice. We're good at what we do. People do not school choice their children to places, I've said this before, that are unsafe, do not educate children. If we were one of those places that did neither, or maybe one of, we would not see the numbers or the growth coming here. That is a credit to the staff, the administrators, etc. And that cannot be understated, because if you go back a couple of years to FY 15 or 16, you only saw a $24,000 differential to the good. That could have flipped very, very quickly. And that's when things go badly. That's what I'm not worried about. The other thing too is what we're gonna have to explain out, and we will, is E&D. Because one of the, when we add this to the revenue, is that why are you not spending the money that we give you, was a quote, I think, last budget season or before. That E&D number, folks, has increased exponentially because of Medicaid. This district has got really, really good at wringing out that towel of Medicaid. We try, and we know how to try to get every single dime that is owed to us. When you look at this, I know that we've discussed this before. Cheryl, who has done a wonderful job, we've discussed that position. That is not us spending this money. What this is by the time we find out how much Medicaid reimbursement that we're actually going to receive, we don't have time to spend it. And so what happens is it dumps into E&D. So all of a sudden, when you start looking at $355,000, you don't get notified of that. Well, in the old way, we won't talk about this now, but we didn't get notified until the end of June. Well, we don't have time to even account for that. It goes right into E&D. When we go back to staffing, which we can talk about at another time, we've now allocated monies from Medicaid to help pay for those positions that actually generate Medicaid money. So that is another source. When I say revenue, okay, and we have another slide someplace. I don't know where it is in the old. It's going to be what we've increased over. And by the way, grants. That's the other thing that we cannot. I'm talking about competitive grants, right? Grants that we actually have to go out and we could get an. Kate and John have done a fantastic job. I think was it $85,000 grand total for the 88 for the STEM grant over 2 years. We just got accepted into another. It's $88,000. That takes a lot of work. We don't get every grant we write, but we're trying to do that. I don't have the sheet, and I wish I had the sheet here with me. But in 2016, using those as revenue sources, it was roughly around $200,000-300,000 of monies that we had an effect on in terms of revenue. We're over $1 million something this year alone. That is how we're trying to, at least in the district, are trying to offset these costs. The sad thing about it is that that's a lot of money. We're still coming up short because it's not enough money, and it's not exactly money that we can use like cash, but it's money that we're able to obviously expend to try to offset cost.
But sometimes when you've got those grants, aren't they for a particular thing where you get that money, but you have to spend it a certain way, and you
Sure.
can't use it on what
Well,
you
we
have.
would be buying technology, so that's the other part of the grants that
Right.
we're writing. We're writing them smart.
So
We're not going after grants that we
I
want
don't
to
want
use.
people watching this and
Yeah.
say, oh, they've got $1 million and they're just,
No.
keeping it,
Because-
and saving it for a rainy day.
But here's the thing.
I want them to realize that.
All of that
we
money
have
is
to
realized.
use it
Yeah.
for something.
Every bit of that money is realized in this
Right.
budget.
I don't want people to think that we're just sitting on it. It's in my
So-
back pocket.
And let's go back to the 635, it's 3.4% of our budget.
Which
That is $635,000. That is not an exorbitant amount, especially when, I'm not going to throw out any names, but our local regional vocational school was at 4.98%
Sure.
E&D, and they did some, right? So, for anyone to question the amount of monies there,
Right.
certainly percentage-wise, you always need to
Yeah.
have your contingency.
But we're
things
using
that-
it.
And now we are, we turn it around and we.
Which
yeah,
we've gone up
both
from
of them.
1% roughly in X amount of years to them. So that's the ways, look, every dime is being spent. That is, of course, in all of this paperwork, you will see every dime of this being spent, especially in our in the expense sheets here. You'll see all of that, detailed. But the fact of the matter is that, it's a credit to everybody who's working hard to do that, but it's also a commentary about how much it costs to educate small districts, especially regional districts. And that's how you get to the fact that you're close to $800,000, $900,000, underfunded, so to speak.
So I'm glad that you put this up because when you mentioned about the E&D, the 500,000 in each of these columns, I was wondering how much did we have in E&D in the first place, and what is our balance going to be? But you must know that, given the fact that we got such a large amount at the end of last year, you must think that we're probably gonna get something similar at the end of this.
We have been told by the company that does their Medicaid for now anyway, that we're looking somewhere in the area of $100,000 more than we furnished.
Which is just about represents
That's
75.
next year now. We
yeah.
won't
I
realize
mean,
that until,
And we are putting an additional $75,000
Right.
of,
Yeah.
I hate to say income, because it's
it's
not
not,
really income.
that's why I don't want to, right.
I hate saying that, receipts, maybe,
Receipt,
I guess,
yep.
in the Medicaid line. We're using $500,000 of EED, which is a net of 135. It leaves us for
Sure.
emergencies. And every year, I mean, last year we had 50,000 left. The year before it was 50, about 50.
Yeah, we put it into,
Yeah.
$50,000 there.
Well, it just sits there and it just rolls into the next year's figure.
But in this FY19 budget, we added a VP, and what else?
Fifth grade.
Fifth grade,
and
sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
You said that earlier. So,
They were in school choice last year, well, FY19. So they're moved over to FY20 general fund. Right.
but the VP, was that in there last year as well?
It was in school choice.
So we've already moved that to the general fund, but we do have those 3 new positions.
And how much did you say that accounted for?
It's almost 200,000.
200,000. So, and that's why when we look at these numbers and we go to the very last column, we say, what does it take to open the door without anything additional to support any of the needs we have? Above and beyond moving those 3 positions into the general fund, and adding what we need for the new Templeton Center building opening and moving the 5th grades back. That's what this last number truly represents.
That's 8.64.
8.64. And we are buying the ELA and the science textbook.
Out of school choice.
School choice. Of course, what we just discussed though is maybe needing to realign a couple
Yeah,
of things.
so you could take the 90,000 from group insurance, and if you take the 90,000 from the bleachers, if you take that from school choice, then you can put that 180 towards health insurance, and you're still with the same number.
And just that, I mean, because this is where we are. Just by doing that, we still need an additional $929,000. Right?
No, not in that case, right, you're right, I'm sorry.
Right, that's that last column, so.
Interestingly, no matter how you move, this is, and I certainly don't want to bring up, sort of bad tidings or bad memories, but last year, when we had the reorg discussion, and I will say this, we forecasted this. This is not a surprise. We said this a lot. We didn't know what positions, and I'd be very candid about that. I was not sure what positions. After all, when the dust settles and how things are needed, we weren't sure about positions. But what we knew is that it would probably be around 3 or 4 different positions, but we didn't know what. We just didn't. So I'm going to go back to this just real quick if I can. Again, just so I think it's important, is that folks know that this wasn't just, well, I told you, so we're just going to just pile on. What you see here, folks, is a lot of hard work about taking existing staff and honestly going to move them in other positions so that there would not be a cost to the district in terms of the general fund. And we brought over that 5. Now, granted, this is okay. That's the original. Sorry, I gotta keep going to the wrong slides. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. So what I want to show you is that when we take out the things that were above and beyond, which are crossed out. Okay. So you look at the special education teacher, which has to go to Phillipston. There is no question about that. Phillipston has got to have a special education teacher. Well, we've reassigned someone to do that from the district, from someone who's currently here, and it's a 0 cost. and it's a zero effect to any services. So we're not hurting services in any way. We talked about the guidance counselor. What that really is, folks, is that is a school psychologist, okay, which costs the same amount of money, but we need that person in order to do more testing because some of the people that we've moved around to save money were testers, and they couldn't do the level of testing that we need in terms of our special education needs. So it's actually better. It's actually a better use of money to hire a school psych at that amount, taking $35,000 from Medicaid. Why? Because when they are doing what it is to be billable, they'll actually be making money, right? That will be billable time when they're doing testing. So that is a good use of Medicaid money because they'll generate Medicaid money and it'll only cost $35,000. When I say only, you get it, but $35,000. We have the food service. That comes out of the general fund revolving anyway. That'll be a zero cost to the district. Granted, we had the position at one point. We cut the position when TC was being built. We need it back, obviously, because it's a bigger building. Maintenance and custodial, pretty straightforward, okay? Okay, we needed a sped dean chair for the middle and high school and elementary. We did away with those in order to get to where we needed to get for this year, but we have combined 2 positions. That ELL district, 0.5, that's a non-negotiable because the state came in during its audit and said, you don't have one. That's a civil rights violation if you don't have one. Please have one. Hence, we have one, but we're going to combine that because we don't have a lot of ELL children. We have currently 2. But it doesn't matter. The state says you must have someone here. So we're taking an existing position that they're going to fill 2 positions, basically. They're combined. So that's actually, I don't know if that's a cost against the, because she's already existing. We'll have to talk about how that would look, but where we talked about that. That's actually might be a 0, actually, because she's already here. So let's look at that. So Medicaid coordinator district, the specialist, that's going to cost, that's the person who's generated all of this money because it is a paperwork nightmare. Why is this person important? Because they're changing the law. They're changing the rules in July 1. Let me give you just a small piece of that, is that even testing that's initial, which is not billable currently right now, will be billable as of July 1. So even if the student is found eligible for special education services or not, we'll be able to bill that time. That is a lot of paperwork. That's money. And we want every dime of it. If they're going to give us that, and it's an important service, absolutely.
Forget about the money.
Well, no, that position, no, that'll happen anyway. Of course, those services will always happen, but the person who's going to track all of that time and report it to the state, that's why that's important. Well, that's it. So
all of those are contained in this last column?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, they have to be.
Right,
They are the new
clarified
level
and
service.
state with Cameron
Right,
that
that's
that
why
is-
I'm saying that before. None of these positions can go away. They are literally part of what we're going to need because of the reconfiguration. Have to. But what we do at Templeton Center, we must do at Phillipston. 2 of those positions will
125,000.
That's all,
Yeah.
all of these things.
I think the state could see that curriculum as a one-time expense in school choice.
well,
It's done elsewhere. No, the other districts.
there is another
school choice
option.
pay.
We've discussed this in other areas, is that is an elementary, obviously it's an elementary reading curriculum. Because everybody, well, 90%, this would of course be for both elementary schools, and we say that out loud. That could be expensed back to the building project,
Some supplies that we need.
for example. So we talked about this, obviously it's a public session, so it's not like it's,
Why is that here?
because, well, we didn't want to talk, I'm not making any assumptions
No.
on any of this. This is,
We're looking for possibilities.
right, so
why
that is
we're
a
talking.
possibility. The school committee should know what that expense is.
So that would be an allowable building expense because of
Yeah.
new supplies
Yep.
to build out.
It definitely meets the criteria, it will not be reimbursed. So it's not,
Right,
the
but it
60%.
still goes into the amount that has already been approved to spend. And I know we took the building is on target, we're not coming in over budget, so
Extremely well.
What's that?
We're doing extremely well with the budget.
We are,
That's excellent.
we are close to 2 million under, I mean, I forgot what the number that they were initially about, but we're very, you know, it's a
Can
lot.
we then take 125 off of that?
no, it came out of here. Instead of school choice. So it'll reduce the school choice monies
Because
on both
this,
sides.
yeah, but in this one it isn't.
Right, so if we go to this, we're just using less school choice money. That doesn't mean that we can't decide to use for
More.
something else in school choice.
Right.
I mean, we're already, you know, when you look at the amount of school choice that we have, $1.4 million, we're estimating,
Roughly.
you know, we're using $1,368,000. I get a little nervous, we get a bunch of kids, I mean, I know kids who've already moved into the district that used to school choice, I know some kids who.
Chelsea, how many since July, January, how many total students? 6? 5? Who moved into the district? I believe we have 4 new students since January 1.
But
At the elementary, just at the elementary level, I believe. We'll,
and those are residents.
those are
But
residents.
I know of a high school and a middle school kid in December who were school choice from Gardner that now live in Templeton. So, I haven't told you about them, but so we're going to see these numbers shift.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can't guarantee that at $1.4 million, it's probably a decent number,
Yeah.
but it could go up and down.
It does. It'll change it. Because it always does. You're absolutely right. They just take a snapshot of December or whatever and say, this is your preliminary. In the end, they do all the fine tuning when they came in.
So is that the only expense that comes out of the new building?
Yes.
Well, that's good enough.
So when we look at, let's say, the last column, or even the second to the last, if we say that the ELA curriculum does qualify as a new building expense, and that's where it will go. Shows that we're $929,000 is what the ask would be. And we haven't even discussed what other items are on the asks that we truly have to consider. But when I look at these numbers, and you know, we've got $365,000 in new Templeton Center and reorganization costs because of that. We've got $200,000 that last year we ate out of school choice, but we did that knowing this year they would go into the general fund. That was the agreement. So, I mean, that's $565,000 out of $929,000. I'm not reading that wrong, right?
That's right.
So that, you know, when you look at what we're really asking for, second, so if I said 565, so we're really asking for about $364,000 of additional monies. And we haven't even talked about the fact that we have increases, there's inflation, there's all these other things. So when I look at the amount that 929, take that over our current, that's what, 4.9% increase? 929 divided by the 18,674. So we're not even asking for 5%, but we already know that more than half of what we're asking for, more than half, comes from things that we were on the record for saying we were going to need, period.
But then, but the 8.64 is still what they're looking, what the towns are looking at. No matter when we set it.
Well, of course, because they've got to fund the whole thing. But
That's right.
but the justification for the funding is an easy narrative. You know, $365,000 is the new building, no surprises.
Got it.
$200,000 are the positions that we, is that thunder? Thunder? Is that, what is it called, thunder snow? You know, $200,000
For the new positions.
for the new
gotcha.
positions. That's not a surprise, that was discussed last year. So it's really, we're asking for $364,000 above and beyond.
Yeah.
Are
I
you okay
know.
out there, Susan? You know, which is a 1.9% increase.
I understand the
Right,
narrative, I get that, but I'm thinking that, they're still looking at that.
Yeah. No, and
I agree with
I
what you're saying.
understand
I totally
that,
understand what
but
you're
in
saying.
order to have people understand why we're asking for it, it's important that we have a narrative and we understand what the monies are going towards. It's not that we're asking for things because we want to put a turf field in, It's not.
Don't say that. What about Jeff? Does that accomplish what you originally wanted out of school choice?
Yes, I believe it does.
It would.
Yes.
As long as we're
Jim
conscious.
Tutor is going to show up
Thank you.
next.
Thank you.
It's happened, I've witnessed it before.
Ooh, okay, so I get where we are level service. Now I'm more concerned about what things are we being asked for to fund, okay, that we've taken out, we haven't even discussed yet. We've got a Spanish teacher, letter trainer, maybe, we have all of these other things that were asked. I can't imagine that any of our administration would have asked for something ridiculous that wouldn't have been vetted through you, and so,
Well, they ask for all kinds of things.
well, yes,
This
you
is the
vet them
vet.
out. This
Yeah,
is, you've already pre-vetted
this-
these, as, okay, these could be,
That's their job.
and I guess the question I have is on some of these budget requests that we have.
Where are you? Just so I'm on this.
I'm just
list.
flipped
Oh, okay,
over,
okay.
looking at the
All right.
general fund
I got
budget
you.
requests
Yep.
eliminated, because these were all the above and beyonds for the level service. So of these things, what are the priorities? As a district, what would our priority items be? So we can look at, okay, could we fund them? Do we need to, where could we fund them from? And does that change an ask position? Because we said in the beginning, we can't go to the table again next year and the year after and the year after, because that's not gonna work.
I guess I'm still reeling from the idea that we've got to get funded to 8 point something%. So before you start to put more things in there. I understand if you want to ask, you can ask for it all, but I've still got to justify to the state, if this doesn't go through the town, these positions.
What,
And that's why I wasn't ready to put more in, because I just said, okay.
So I guess I'm gonna pose the question this way. If we're level servicing, does that mean last year we asked for things we didn't need? Because we're asking for the same things we had last year and adding the things that we require to open the door. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm trying to understand what monies do we have in this budget that we couldn't ask for?
yeah, so honestly, when it comes to supplies and stuff like that, they would fall to the, they would fall to the end of the list. But, some of these things that, for example, the middle school Spanish teacher, well, a lot of middle schools have a foreign language. We're one of them that do not. And we're trying really hard to share our Spanish teachers, we're not able to offer that service to, that experience to all middle schoolers. So we have to pick and choose. That's unusual, to be very candid. We've already talked about the elementary curriculum, and they're probably not. The high school 504 area you have seen probably the last 3 years. We have a lot of 504s. And what happens is that they need to be serviced, obviously. And you need someone who's able to accommodate that. Now, yes, special education teachers can do those type of things, but we're regular education teachers doesn't matter. But some of these accommodations are significant, meaning that they are, and we are required to do them, of course. I mean, that's not something we are, of course, are doing them, but it's straining the other supports that we have, and that's generally special education.
Do we have one right now?
No. We have not, as far as I know. I don't know if we ever have. I don't have to Not since I've been here.
I think you can prioritize these, but the idea is we have new positions. We have $200,000 that were in this year's budget for new positions. I mean, at some point, we have to catch up. We can't just keep making that total higher. So I want to get to a point where I feel I can justify it, and yes, these eliminated lists can be numbered. For what?
And I guess that's where I struggle, because I don't disagree with you. Obviously, every dollar in the budget, we need to understand what we're spending it. But when I look at what we've done the past several years, and where we've put our resources and the allocations to for positions and needs, because 80% of the budget is staff. So, unfortunately for us, it's, it comes down to positions. It's not like, I find it we're getting harder and harder to be able to say, like we've done in the past, if we go 4 or 5 years ago, well, okay, so in order to make do, we're gonna take this person and now they do this, this, and this. Like, we don't have the person sitting around with the excess capacity anymore. I feel like we're really strained and pushed to the limits with the staffing we have, between the unfunded mandates that we have to do, which granted, there's been a slowdown in the asks, but we still have those positions that were added way back when that we still have to keep, right? Plus all of the social emotional things that have, that need to be supported in the school. So I just don't know how we can be, I guess, maybe as flexible as we have in the past, to say, well, we'll do and we'll redesign, and without wholesale reform of the district and perhaps the ed funding formulas, but that's a whole other story. I don't see how we can impact this number.
And that's why we've tried with the positions, going back to this list, is that many of the positions that we have, I really can't say added. They're new. They'll be new to the district. They're needed, but they're dual purpose. So the guidance council that I have for Phillipston will handle guidance at Phillipston, but they'll also be the elementary school psychologist, which we need. You have to have one of those. We really do. But beyond that, whether you agree or don't agree, you need a guidance counselor at Phillipston because we can no longer share. We'll have 2 guidance folks at the new Templeton Center with close to 500-600 kids. They can't share that way. We have 2 guidance counselors for the middle school, which is at 4. So you've heard this rant before. So we're now we can't share them, and when we are sharing them, one school is getting a guidance person 2 days a week, and the other school is getting them 3 days a week. We can't do that any longer. We just can't sustain it. So that's why these positions are twofers in a lot of ways, quite frankly. The SPED team chair, the ELL person, we combined. It made sense. We had somebody on staff, and we're going to train them.
See, we were just talking about your crossed out positions right
Yeah.
now to extend it. And, I've given those up there, we can look to justify. My point, Margaret, was that when you put that $200,000 worth of new positions that are here in FY19, that was part of a vetting process over a middle school teacher, over a parent or something else, because you already picked those positions this year.
We're talking about the assistant principal and the 2 classroom
I'm talking
teachers.
about those 3 that went in.
Yeah, the VP.
Those are the ones that you went in, and these, yeah. So, I'm just getting to the point where you can look at something and say, I justified it because we needed this, and this will come up later. But I mean, you made a choice.
Right.
When you put those 3 in, it cost $200,000.
We didn't have a choice.
Well, we didn't, though.
But you
we
made
didn't.
it.
But don't forget, 5th and 6th grade, we're going to have over 30 some odd kids, and I have that old slide someplace.
Right, but
But
the-
30, we couldn't possibly put 30 some odd kids in the 5th and 6th grade
But the new VP was a choice.
with one principal with 600 kids.
Well, it
We
was
had
something that we.
right, but even when I hear the old days, nobody had 1 in 600. Not at the elementary
Honestly,
level.
So that's
we
what
had
I'm
a
saying.
VP,
How many of these
What's
can
that?
we
We had a
put
vice
in?
principal. It wasn't like we created I'm sorry, the elementary.
Yeah, the elementary.
Sorry, I was
Yeah.
thinking middle school.
Yeah.
just, you know, I think we could talk about this for a long time, but right now we just need to get to some point where those crossed out stay there and we can look at what we have here.
We crossed them out because we prioritized them that way. Just, of course, that should be obvious. When we looked at everything, we go, well, these are the things that are important, but not just important. I can't run, the ship cannot run without them because they are, in fact, part of the level service now. So that has to be the new understanding. We did cross out the bottom because we don't have them now. We are operating level service without them. Would we be better with them? Well, of course, right? Of course we would. I mean, no one's going to argue that, but we are running without them. We cannot run without the positions before them. So that's all I want to, yeah. So.
I mean, so when I look at that middle pink column, which means we're funding all these additional
Yes.
buildings.
Yep.
We're asking for an additional $350,000 to do that. Just to put proportionally in perspective. And I don't know with any of the other changes we talked about, I don't think it's going to impact that bottom line number at all, right?
No.
So to get a feel for, of that $350,000, which is listed right over here, we've already taken 125 and 12,000 out. 125 is going to, well, it should go to school choice. Yeah, it should go to school choice, so that, right, so, but the ELA, the 125 should come out. The 12,000 is a one-time, and should go to school, if we're gonna consider it, it belongs in school choice, if we're gonna consider it, I'm not saying it right. You have other things that are additional asks above and beyond what departments normally ask for. I'm looking, you've got high school instruments, you've got ukuleles, you've got another ukulele, you've got lab stools, which is a one-time on the kiln, you got a treadmill. So there's a whole bunch of things that if we wanted to consider, school choice is really where we should be looking to fund them from if we have those monies to do so. And again, we moving monies around. But I'm trying, because the difference being if we hired a middle school Spanish teacher, my hope would be we wouldn't look at it and say, well, it's going to be 1 year and if we can't fund it the next year, then we get rid of the position. Every position's at risk that way anyway, but why would we want to fund something if we're not going to stand by the fact that it's needed? And that goes to your point about, you know.
I think the other, well, anytime you do a level service budget, you're making an assumption that the following year, whatever the state is going to provide you, is going to take care of, right, cover what your natural increases are going to be. Okay? No one asks for more money than they should get. I'm not saying that. But what I want to say to you is that if you level service, which is okay, then, you know, we are going to have this conversation over and over again. So I think that to the point is that right, do we need a Spanish teacher? Well, sure. Sure we do. We cannot offer Spanish 5, I believe. That's where we go. We cannot offer Spanish 5. We're one of the few high schools that cannot offer a 5, whatever, language. That doesn't bode well for us. It doesn't. People have known that. That's not like a secret. We're going to, you know. So do we need it? Sure. But what I mean is that level service is level service. But the level service is changing now, isn't it? It is. What we need for level service is changing. That's not word games. It's not a number. It's not the shell game. It's actually starting to change the way this district now is configured. We discussed that last year, much to my imagining, right? But we did. That is changing now. And I think that is probably the hard conversation, Rayanne, that, you know, that's where we're all like, well, wait a minute. Do you need this or not, Chris? Why is this on this list? Well, we need it because, you know, accreditation-wise, it helps bolster our position, right?
I think middle school world language is important.
Of course it is.
Why?
Oh, my
It's
God.
important.
It's exploratory.
And
That's what middle school is, right? Yeah. Right.
This is, and I think this might be what you're saying too, Ryan. I mean, I'm really torn right now because I can support the middle school language, absolutely. I can support everything that's in there for, you know, above and beyond the level services. I can support it up to the override, but we're also talking about the override, if there is an override. If an override doesn't pass, then going to the 112 budget. And I think what we're asking right now is, what can we support all the way through? And that's where it becomes a little difficult, because I don't necessarily want to, you know, hang it up on the $40,000 athletic trainer. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of torn in this whole process.
Exactly. The research was done, it warranted to stay on the list because it warranted to stay on the list. It provides a benefit to kids. But with all that being said, absolutely, I'm not gonna go to the brink, all
that's-
due respect, on the athletic training.
Right, but
Right,
that's
right.
what we're asking us to,
Yes,
that's,
right.
if I recall correctly, that's our conversation, is what can we get behind the whole way through?
That's it,
So,
that's right.
that being
That's why it's
said,
on the,
I'm torn, because I want to get behind the middle school Spanish teacher, but, I mean, I would support that all the way through, because I think it's a necessity.
right. Because the state may come,
So I think
they
we need to
do,
make some-
what do you currently have that you can do without, but to add something that you do not, right? So, you know, I'd have to think about that. I mean, I don't know what we have more of, you know, that we can do without in order to supplement it. I don't know. I mean, it's one of the questions that they would look, even if they work like that, you know, and I'd have to think about that. I don't know academically what we have more of in order to say, well, we could do enough, we could do without that. Well, let's add Spanish. You know what I mean? So, right. So I'm with you. I
What's
mean,
sad is when the middle school opened, they had a French and a Spanish teacher.
right.
I know, my daughter had it 4 years in middle school. She had it all the way through. She was able to go, and she did great things with world language. The boys not so much. I mean, it is what it is. They had to make cuts, you know. But it's unfortunate, and it should come back. We do need that. We just have to, I think we have to really go through this and say, okay, if we're looking at what we're going through all the way with, which I think is the goal, then I think we need to pick and choose what's going to go forward.
I just want to throw out as well, we're going back to the level service, we talked about the level service and stuff like that. A lot of the discussions that we're having surrounding the school choice. I just want to be very careful on the things. We're asking about things that we need or we think we may need in the future, okay? If we start backing out of things, we're going to reduce the school choice as well. People are going to stop coming into this district, which we're going to be in bad places,
And I don't disagree.
going down. So we just need to, I mean,
I think a middle school world language teacher is more apt to bring somebody in. I think an athletic trainer.
I mean, as we're making this decision, I just want to be very careful on that point. I mean, this is not just for this budget cycle here. We need to think down the road, you know, what are we going to be looking like? Okay, so I just want to throw that out, you know, while we're having this discussion. Okay. Well, can I just ask one other question? Just, I'm not sure. So on the level service that we're looking at, and I'm just not sure on it. We haven't really talked tonight. Is the capital request that we've talked about in the past included in the level service? None of that is in there.
Can you, if you don't mind, just reminding me of which capital request we're talking about? 'Cause I don't.
There was I think it was the sander, the tractor, things like that.
Yes.
Is that all included
Yes.
in, that's in level service?
Yes.
The carpeting,
Yes.
all of that stuff is included?
Because it's swapped out, we paid the towns normally for our
Yep,
plowing
yep.
and sanding, so we swapped it out to cover those capital purchases.
So all of the things that we looked in that
Yes.
capital sheet
Yes.
is included? Okay, I just want to be clear on that. So when I'm looking at level service, all that stuff is included?
Yes.
All right, thank
We're
you.
gonna do our own plow. We talked about this.
Yep,
So
I
it's a
just-
wash of
I
monies,
just-
but yes.
As I'm looking at it, I just want to make sure I'm looking at those as well in there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So on some of these general fund budget requests, do we still have room in school choice where we can put one-time expenditures for it, like in children?
But the only thing that's not one-time is the Spanish teacher, the athletic trainer, the 504 para, and the special needs para. There's 4
Right, but do
positions.
we have enough to, I mean,
So, yeah, I mean,
19,000 in
that's-
instruments and, you know.
Well, so just know, you know, that we froze the budget months ago at this point. Why? Well, during our review from the state, we had some things that we had to correct. One of the things that we had to correct immediately was that we had to hire an additional special education teacher for the life skills program. If you remember, that we had kids who were past the 48 month. You cannot be in the same class if you are 48 months a separation in age. So a 16-year-old can, pardon me, a 14-year-old cannot be with a 17-year-old. That is not allowed, for example. I'm just using that as an example. So when they came in and they said, well, we have this, they would not waiver it, they would not give us another year to do it, we know this, we had to hire a person to take on the older, quote-unquote, life skills special needs children that we have in our district, because it was a violation, and this was part of the report. Well, we had to do that immediately. Well, when we do that, especially in our budget, and given that we had to do the things that we did for last year, that's why we froze the budget. So why am I bringing this up again? Well, when you freeze a budget, literally, you do save, you get the money that you need in terms of position, but you do obviously save money. So in terms of a kiln, yeah, we'd probably easily get the kiln, because one's broken and we think it's actually a safety issue, so we're not using it. Those type of things we could pick up probably with savings from this year. We would never say that yes now, we'd wait as we get closer to the end. But those type of things are small, but at the time, they were on the budget and you saw them. So we're not going to take it off the list, but there will be a possibility for things like that. We just couldn't say, for example.
I personally would want to see the Spanish teacher in the budget. I'm assuming there are the special needs para is a necessity. High school 504 para, and those things are going to be in your budget.
So those three positions are $112,000.
So you're saying the Spanish teacher, the 504 para, and the which one?
The special needs para.
Okay.
So we would add that cost to the 929,533.
Meg, can I just say one thing about the special needs para? We are currently doing a lot of shifting, as you can see. The special needs para may, depending on how things, kind of sift out here with some changes, that may be covered just because we are moving some positions. I don't know that yet. That's why we put it here. Okay, and again, I don't want to get personnel stuff. I don't want to get into it here, but certainly there may be some moves, and that may not be needed. Okay, and so we weren't really trying to hide it. That's why it was in the eliminated section in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't sure what we were going to be able to do as we get closer. We have a couple of those opportunities coming up with kids either coming back, et cetera. How does 504 change, APs change, that kind of stuff. So anyway.
So do you think we can reach some sort of conclusion, or do we need to have another meeting? I mean, it's getting...
I think we need another meeting because I think we need to ask for some numbers to be put together so we can really look at what this all means by, we've got the healthcare number now, swaps.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Can we
That's
see
a
what the
big
middle school Spanish teacher is in? And then,
Yeah,
So let's just because it gets really, if you could just tell us in what budget you'd like to, so like on what scenario or however you'd want to see it, so we make sure we get it right. That's all.
okay, I'm gonna, the $90,000 savings in the health insurance, like we talked about, against the school choice course, the 71,000 in the regular, the 71 for the Spanish teacher in the regular general fund budget. I would also say whatever we need for the powers, whether it's just the 504, whether it's the power as well. That's my opinion.
You gotta add to that, let's move the monies for the bleachers and school choice and credit the pennies. So that'll be 180,000 back to the general fund.
So that amount that we talked about, 365,000 for the new elementary school, that was all added in.
That's already
The third, yes. And then if these one-time asks that are important because they're there, and they made it this far, if those can go into school choice side of
number,
things.
and then we can decide.
If they should
Yeah.
stay.
And since that's, if we say, okay, funding is there, we can spend it or we can not spend it next year. We can make those decisions on the fly, whereas with the regular budget. And the ELA curriculum should be applied against the project, if that is allowable.
Thank you, Vicki.
Anything else you want to say?
Nope, no.
All right.
I just want to see.
Yeah. So how about, we
It's
should,
Monday, Monday that we have normally, just normally, it's the latest during the day.
we should try to get together. Did everybody block out Monday the 4th at 5 o'clock for potential old boards when we talked last time?
Monday the 4th?
Yeah, because it was going to be the 4th or the 11th. You weren't at the meeting, Laura,
Oh,
so.
I did.
Would that be enough time? It's a couple of days. I'm sure it's not going to take you too long to, it's pretty good at this
Pretty much,
re-scenarioing.
it's really just,
Would everybody be available on Monday the 4th at 5 o'clock if we do it early? And come back and kind of,
At 5?
at 5, would that work? Or,
I'm in Florida at the time, but that's just me.
when do you come back?
Tuesday.
Back, so we-
Today was UFCW.
We could do it in Florida.
We'll go to Florida.
that is not the budget.
Kids. When I saw $2,445.
So we're
Yeah,
looking
so,
at Monday or
then
not?
looking at Monday. And then your
Obviously
dates at the
sooner,
end of the
because
week.
the 11th is the
So
tri-board,
next
so I
week
would,
it's the,
Yeah.
we're gonna need time for
Thursday.
whatever.
Thursday you could
The
do?
only thing I'm in Tuesday night I could do.
What about, would Tuesday night work?
February 5th.
February 5th?
No, we don't.
Oh my
We have
God.
that Wednesday.
Yes.
Party Vicky's on the line.
5th, the 5th works for me.
Would the 5th work for everybody? Tuesday the 5th,
Yep.
5 o'clock? We'll do it early?
Here?
Here in the library again?
Sure.
Could we make a U at the desk?
Yep, sure. We thought that this was a work, we
Yeah.
wanted a work
Yeah,
table.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's so much room, I think that if we did a U, then we can yell at each other, point
Right.
fingers at each other. All right, so Tuesday the 5th,
So just so I'm
5
clear,
o'clock.
Margaret, I can release the 4th?
You can
You just
release
move
the
it?
4th, move it to the 5th. In the library with the laptop. Carl Mustard, Dr. Casavant in the library with the
Might
laptop.
very well be them.
All right, so that'll be our next, and that'll just be a finance meeting Tuesday.
That is done. He's good, great. Back to school, yeah, he's home in 2 days, yeah.
Long
Got back on Saturday, he went back Monday. He said because he missed his friend so much.
Or have you coming back Tuesday?
1:30?
We had planned an executive session. We've been here a long time. I don't know what the weather's like outside.
I'm sure it's frightening.
Should we adjourn and we will do our executive session on the 13th when we meet for our next regular meeting?
Oh, that's a good idea.
We were just doing an update, so. is that okay with
I have nothing
you?
to update, we have nothing, yes.
All right, so the next meeting then with finance is going to be Tuesday, the 5th at 5 o'clock in the library.
Yeah.
Okay, I would entertain.
A motion to adjourn.
Second. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.